Hey everyone, today I'm joined by Bobby Luisi. He was a capo in the Philly Mafia. He was also a proposed man in the Patriarca crime family. Today we talk about his involvement with both of these families, how he joined, what he did while he was in both of them, and overall, how he ended up leaving the life, going to prison, changing his life, and going on to write books. So if you want to get more interviews like this, please hit subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into Bobby's story. Thanks for coming on, Bobby.
Hi, I'm Bobby Luisi. Um, I was a capo in the Boston area, capo regime in the Philadelphia family, and I'm running a crew in Boston. I grew up in Little Italy in the North End. That's the Italian section of Boston. And I grew up with the Patriarca family. And one time I was proposed in the Patriarca family in the 1990s.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
I was gonna say, so what crime family were you part of that in the first? So which one came first?
The Patriarca family. I grew up with all those guys. A very close friend of mine, Mark Rossetti, was a May guy in that family. Becoming a capo in that family, and he proposed me.
Okay. And then what about the other crime family?
I ended up going to Philly, meeting Ralph Natale, Jory Molino, Giorgio Borghese, and the guys down there. They were great, and they took me in the family. I was proposed for a little while, then they made me, and then shortly after that, they made me a captain, and we started training all my crew in Boston.
And then that's the one that you were done with, right? That was
Yeah.
the last crew you were part of.
Yeah.
Okay. How did they start each family that you're part of?
Well, I mean, when we're talking about the Boston family, we got to go back to the 1800s, and there were a few bosses that came up in the Boston area, and there was a crew also in Rhode Island. There was actually two crews in Boston. They all ended up coming together on the Phil Boccieri, and then eventually Joe Lombardi. And when Joe Lombardi retired, it became the New England family under Raymond Patriarca. He became the boss of the family. Raymond was born in Worcester in Massachusetts, but I think he was 4 or 5 years old. His parents moved to Rhode Island. So he based his family out of Rhode Island on Federal Hill, and he called it the office. That was the office. In Boston was Gennaro Angiulo with his brothers. He was the underboss of Raymond, and he ran the Boston area for Raymond. He was the boss up at this end. And these are the guys. I grew up in the North End. There were 3 capos in the North End at the time. 4. Their crews were on different streets and neighborhoods in the neighborhood. And, this is what I grew up. This is what I saw.
Yeah.
At a young age, I think I was 11 years old, 12 years old, I started working for Rome Vending, which was owned by the Angiulo family. So I was introduced to this very early.
Yeah, definitely then.
Yeah.
So how did you how did you ultimately join, the first family and then the second one?
Well, I grew up with the wise guys, 16, 17 years old. I was working construction too after school. I was living in the North End, and finally I quit school, and I was working full-time construction, and I wanted to get away from that life. I really didn't want to be, my father was in that life. He was a gangster, and I seen a lot of things that I didn't like about the life. I didn't want no part of it. So I went into the building, and I got a 2 builder's license, and ended up on Martha's Vineyard building homes. And in the late 80s, the market crashed down here. And I lost the houses that I had on the vineyard in Boston. And I came home in 1990 with no money, with 2 kids. I think I had $100 in my pocket. And that's when I started to go back on the street. At that time, the Patriarca family was in a little disarray, but it was still strong in the early 90s. And, they were just picking up and arresting people at that time, the bosses. By the early 90s, they were off the street, and, chaos was starting. That was laid over from the 80s. So I ended up getting involved in that. With Frankie Salemi became the boss. I was in his crew under Mark Rossetti. And, the war happened. By the time the war was over, I think in 97, the real violence stopped. I ended up joining the Philadelphia family. I became a cop in the Philadelphia family.
So what? So was there something with the war that made you want to go to the other family?
Well, what happened, the biggest part of it was, I was on the mock. Mock had gotten violated during that time. The law was always after him. They knew he was running the crew and everything. And while he wasn't there, we were doing a lot of things. A lot of things were going on. And I don't know, I just got this illusion with everything that was happening in Boston. And there was a capo on the street at the time. I got in a pretty good beef with him. And at that time, I knew I wasn't going to get made in the Patriarca family. So I moved on and I went to New York and then I went to Philadelphia.
Okay. And let's see. So when you joined Philadelphia, how did that look? Who were you able to have a connect with to be able to join?
Well, first I met Ralph Natale, who was Joey's front guy. They called him the boss at the time.
Hmm.
And from Ralph, I ended up going to Philadelphia and I met Giorgio Borghese, who's a capo in the family, and eventually Joey Molino right after that. And we all hit it off pretty good. I really liked that crew. To me, they're all stand-up guys. I like what they were doing. You got to remember, we're all young in our 30s. They understood what we went through up in Boston, and I understand what they went through with Joey, with his war in Philadelphia in the 90s. And we just got along together. It worked out well.
Okay.
They reached out, they found out what I was doing up there, and, they decided to take me in the family.
Yeah. And let's see. So when you were in this family, what kind of duties were there? Like what did they have you doing?
Well, you got to understand, I'm almost 300 miles away in Boston.
Hmm.
I'm Boston based. So I got made in Philadelphia, but I'm up in Boston. My crew's in Boston. And some people call it a satellite crew, whatever they want to call it. But at that time, with the Patriarcas in disarray, I had the strongest crew. I was in the North End, and I had a lot of people with me at the time. So it was really building my family up over there. But you got to remember, up here, most of the people felt the Patriarchas were still the family, and they were, But, I just kept building and building, and I had a powerful crew up here,
Yeah.
actually
And
taking over everything.
yeah. So what did it look like for your crew? Like what they were doing, and how were you building them up?
Well, what happened during the war, that we were at war really with three other factions that were with the old faction of the Patriarca family. And they picked them all up in one day, believe it or not. I mean, people were killed on both sides during the war, but in one day they swept them all off the street. Believe it or not, all three crews were gone. Now it was time to breathe and keep building. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was out of the way. We still had a few enemies, but no one was stepping up. And that gave me a chance to build my power base in Boston.
And so how did this war start? It was with the Patriarcha family, and who else did you say?
No, it was infighting in the family.
Oh, so it was an internal war.
It was internal. Raymond Patriarca Sr. died in 1985. He gave the family to his son. The Boston guys didn't feel the son was worthy of it. And they hit Billy Grasso. They hit Frankie Salemi, who was supposed to be the liaison between Boston and Rhode Island. The son was sending him back and forth. So there was a hit on him. He survived it. Raymond Jr. went to prison, and Frankie Salemi ended up taking the family over. And they called him a pseudo boss. Nobody really wanted him there. But, my friend was with him, and my father was with him. So I just fell in line under Frankie.
Yeah.
And that started the war, because the old faction, all these other crews were with them, and they really didn't want us there.
No. And you mentioned your father. He was also, what was his title in the Patriarcha family?
Well, he was a proposed guy
Hmm.
in the family, with them since he was a young guy in his 20s. He's a tough guy. My father, murderer, whatever he had to do, he did. They used my father for a lot of things. My father, in between the arrest and everything that was going on, a few times he was proposed, God interrupted the family. And the last time he was proposed, and then I don't know if you heard about my family getting murdered in the 99 restaurant. That was a big story in 95. He ended up getting murdered in there, and he didn't get straightened out, but he was a powerhouse in that Patriarca family for a while.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Looked up to, yeah.
Yeah. And so when, that happened with, your father, what did that look like for you? Did you kind of want to leave that family and go to a different one? Because, I mean, who was suspected of doing it? I mean, did they ever find out or?
No, the guys that did it, they got arrested that day.
Oh,
And the next day, they picked them all up. They know who did it. It was a neighborhood thing. The Patriarca family was upset over it. Naturally, we were all upset over what happened. But nothing came out of it after that, So all I tried to do after he was murdered was try to put the family, keep it together, and go back out on the street.
Yeah. And that's what you did, right? You did that with the
Yep.
Patriarca family for a while, and then, eventually, how many years later until you went to the other one?
Well, only a few, maybe 2 years later, I started going down to Philly.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So, okay. So you kind of talked about some of the bosses and members that you were around. Who was Ralph? How do you say it? Ralph Natale?
Ralph Natale was in the Philadelphia family.
Hmm.
Joey Molino took the position as underboss, and he put Ralphie up front as boss. So Ralphie was Joey's front guy, basically. Joey was still running the family,
Okay.
but Ralph had the title.
And was he one of the guys that was he doing shows too before he died?
Ralph, yeah, he was on Valuetainment. He was on a few different shows, wrote a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I seen him a few times on there. I seen he passed away, but so you guys were pretty close then.
Well, I got a little close to Ralph. I liked Ralph in the beginning, but I
Yeah.
ended up, like I said, after a few meetings, I was in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And once I hooked up with them down there, I was in Philly all the time
Okay.
with that crew.
Yeah. So what were these bosses known for that you were around?
Well, I mean, Joey Molino took over the Bruno Scaffa family, went to war with the Stanfa, who was the boss at the time in the 90s. And there was a war, again, inside the family, internal. And Stanford and his crew got arrested finally. Like I said, there were murders on both sides, like Boston. And Joey ended up taking over the family, becoming the boss.
Okay. So was there ever any famous hits that were around you in either one of these families?
I wouldn't say famous. I wouldn't say that. No.
Okay. What was kind of like the downfall of the family? Like what initially happened for each one of them? You know, like if there was like a moment in time where, that the family took a serious hit and, maybe not have been doing well.
Well, like I said, the Patriarca family, between the FBI and some informants, it kept breaking the family down, and they were having a hard time rebuilding. I mean, they're still out there. They're still there today. Even the crews that I made when I was on the street are still here from Philly. What happened, though, when I got picked up in 1990, everything kind of fell apart. They picked Joey and myself up on the same day. They picked up 4 of us in Boston and 7 in Philadelphia.
And what were their charges against you?
Against me, when they first picked me up, was drugs.
So they had proof?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was on tape and everything. Selling
Oh.
kilos to an FBI agent,
So
because
what was?
one of Joey's Capos was an informant, Ron Previty.
Oh, okay.
And he
And
had me sitting with the FBI agent.
when this FBI agent approached you, was he pretty good? I mean, like, did he seem like he was? What was his title, or what was he saying that he was?
No, he claimed he had an Irish import-export business in Boston. He was friends with Ronnie. He was from Philly. And I wasn't really getting involved with the guy. I didn't want to know nothing. I got a phone call, went down and talked to them, and they said, Ronnie's got a guy up there with him. He's having problems with people. So basically, they needed my protection. And that's what I offered in the beginning. But really, it was a setup to lure me in. They were trying to give me hot stuff, swag, diamonds, watches, furs, all this. They would try. Then there was something with bookmaking, but I didn't like Ronnie, the one that ended up ratting. I didn't like him from the beginning. I didn't trust him. And it took them a while to get me. But finally, they got me on tape.
So when they got you on tape, how was that? Like, what did that look like?
Well, we ended up selling them 3 kilos. They asked me for another 4, but I told them I wouldn't give it to them, but they charged me anyway. So it was sold them 3, conspiracy for 4, and now facing 20 years. Because they were doing anything they can, because I was the boss up there at the time, to get me off the street. They were knocking down the Patriarca family, and I was building up my family. And the feds were upset over that. So they were doing anything they could to get me off the street.
So how long of a run did you have with the Philadelphia family?
Just a few years, till 99. Just a few years. But my run started in 1990 when I got home.
Okay.
I started building right away.
Yeah. And when they arrested you, what was that day like when they went and got you?
Actually, it was kind of a good day. I'll be honest with you. Prior to that, a year and a half before that, I had the type of spiritual experience that I talk about in my book, From Capo to Christian. I'm going to give you the information for it. And I had a spiritual experience. I think it was 15 months before I got arrested. And I started looking for Christ, to be honest with you. So I'm out on the street now, like walking a toddling fence, because I didn't know which way to go. I seen the truth. I knew God was there. And I also knew what I was doing wrong. I couldn't get out of it at the time. There was no way to get out. I mean, I'm running a crew up there. We're having our own family. We're putting together. I was really deep in Cosa Nostra. So there was no way for me to get out of it. And I used to pray to God, how am I going to get out of this? Because I didn't want it no more. I didn't want it anymore. And finally, they came and arrested me. And it was great. The day they came and arrested me, they came in. They were gentlemen. Surrounded my house, knocked on the door, let them in. I knew why they were there. I knew this Ronnie was a rat. I knew what was happening. I wasn't stupid. And anyway, they cuffed me up. They take me out. And as I'm going out, I felt like a yoke broke off my shoulders. And it felt great. Wow, what just happened? And I realized the burdens that I was carrying around on my shoulders. And I realized at that time that was God. And I'm out. So that's why I was happy that day. Now I could go in, I'll face prison. We're on the street. We know we got to do that. So, they wanted to give me 10 to 12 years. We were fighting for the 10 or the 12 at the time. But I was getting re-indicted, superseded on murder. Well, I was picked up on that charge. So first it was good, then it turned bad.
Yeah.
It does all the time, right?
Yeah.
I don't do my 10 years. I'm all right. Come home. I'm going to retire. I have plans to go to Florida with my family.
Yeah.
But plans and things don't work out the way we want them, does it? All the time.
No.
It really doesn't.
No. So what was this murder charge about?
Well, I really can't talk too much about it because there were several, but I can't talk about them because there was other people involved.
Oh, okay.
As I was, so what happened was a very close friend of mine, main guy in the Patriarca film, my partner at one time, while I'm in Plymouth County, first getting arrested, he was already in there for something else. And he said, Bobby, there's murder indictments coming down. You should call your lawyer, and see what's going on. Sure enough, I call my lawyer. He brings down an ex-U.S. Retired AUSA from the Boston office, Monty Bedreau. He said, Bobby, they got you cold on a murder. All your friends are giving you up. They're laughing about it up there. They got you now. You're not going to get out. He said they couldn't indict you on this grand jury because I was sitting on the Joey Molino grand jury up in Boston. They can't come at you with all these different things at one time. But he said, as soon as this grand jury is gone and the new one sits, you're going to get indicted for murder. So Monty told me, so why don't you go talk to him? So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be a rat. I'm not going to talk to nobody. But after a few weeks, my stomach's turning. There's guys around me. I don't know who the rats are. And I finally went and I talked with them. I ended up doing that. But I didn't go through with it. I ended up going to trial twice. First trial, I got 235 months. Lost that one. Went the second time and lost that. But they reduced it to 15.8. So I ended up getting 47 months off.
Damn.
So in total, I did 13.9 in the feds on that charge.
So 13 years and 9 months, is that what that is?
Yep.
Damn.
Yep.
So let's see. So how, when you were in there, I mean, what were you doing? Were you just, really studying up on God, or what was the, kind of the situation?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what happened. I got locked up at Plymouth in the beginning, and I had time to read. So I picked the Bible up, and I started reading the Bible, and really enjoyed it. And I'm starting to gain all this knowledge. And at that time, I was having visions and little visions and dream visions, and I seen something going on with me, When I got in the feds, I ended up joining a college school thing, and I did a 4-year course in theology. I finished it in 2.5 years. I ended up with a 3.8 GPA. I did well, and I started teaching in the prisons. I was a theologian, and I started programs in the prison with that, and I ended up becoming an education teacher, and I ended up becoming I put programs together for the guys that were going home, because I was in the construction business. So now the guys were going home and teaching them how to read tape measures, concrete, the whole thing, So I taught a lot in there. And that was like what I really loved to do at the time.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, you can still tell you still love teaching. I mean, you do it with your show and stuff too. I mean,
well, every Sunday, Robert Luisi Ministries were up there.
Yeah, I know. And then even with the Mafia, the Wednesday night lives and everything. I mean, you get to talk to everyone, and so yeah, I mean, you're definitely doing something positive now. I mean, you definitely made a major negative into a positive, man. So that's awesome.
Yes, I did. Well, God did that. Praise God.
So okay, for the big question, would you ever recommend this life to anyone?
Absolutely not. It's a foolish life to get into now. I won't recommend it to anybody. What's at the end? Death or prison. Nothing good is going to come out of this life. Prison is going to be a revolving door if you don't get a life sentence. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it for anybody. All my friends that are home, and we went through the war together, the majority of them don't even want to know nothing. They're trying to work and do legit things now. It's just not worth it anymore. Now, and again, when I came home, you could come home, try to get back in, but you know what you're doing? You're walking into someone else's indictment. You don't know who's in trouble for what, who's being watched, what they're doing. You could come home half innocent and pick another bit up if you're around the wrong people. Because you know what the feds do. They only need conspiracy. They need no evidence, just conspiracy. So I stood far away from everybody when I came home.
Yeah. Kind of talk about the Rico charge. I mean, because that was what implicated you then with your crimes?
They tried to Rico me in the beginning, but all they could get, because they need a few predicate acts to do that, but all they really could get me on solo was the cocaine. And so they just picked me up on the cocaine.
Yeah.
They were trying, like I said, trying to get me to sell swag, bookmaking, do different things with them that I wouldn't do. This is what they were trying to involve me in. So now they can Rico me. And with drugs in there, it could have been a life sentence, especially with the murders that they brought in after.
Yeah.
So I was getting superseded. Probably the superseding indictment would have been racketeering. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But because I did talk and stop it, I ended up killing all that. So all the guys that were ratting on me, they had to do their time.
Damn. Yeah. So I was gonna say, so did you ever see the Rico, the Rico ever take any other crime families down? Like, were you witnessing that?
It was designed for that. It took down the Patriarca family hierarchy. I mean, it was designed for that. That was designed to take them all out. Now they use it for everybody.
Yeah.
Any gangs, any affiliations, they're always in there trying to get that Rico charge. 2 or
Yeah.
3 predicate acts, and you're gone. And
So
God forbid murder and drugs are in them, it's even worse, you know.
yeah. And so when you seen it with your own Patriarca family, what was that like? What was the situation?
Well, when I first came back in the 90s, like I said, they were picking all these guys up, all the bosses. They were cleaning off the street as best they could, the FBI. And to me, it was just par for the course. I mean, this is the life we're in. This is going to happen. Cosa Nostra was still strong at that time. I felt in the early 90s when I came home. And there was still a family active in Boston. And that's why I got involved. You know, it was an easy way for me to make money to support my family.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think, I mean, with all that, I mean, you were trying to live a pretty legitimate life, and then, life
Before
happened.
that, yes, I was.
Yeah, and then life happened, and
Yeah.
kind of just fell back into it. I mean,
Yeah.
because would you say because that was kind of all you knew besides, doing the contracting stuff?
I don't want to say that. I own restaurants, coffee shops. I mean, I don't want to say that. I was always a businessman, entrepreneur, doing different things, but it was the easiest way for me to make money.
Yeah.
You don't need credit on the street, my friend. You know what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
you do from some mob guys, but not from the bank.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to worry about those things. Charge cards and debit cards and all that nonsense. It's a cash business, and you just fill your pockets up with it, basically.
Yeah.
And the allure of all that money and power, I couldn't stay away from it.
You love the money and power, huh?
Yeah, well, I ain't gonna say I love the money. Money was a tool to me,
Hmm.
but money brought me power. I enjoy the power more than the money, if you can understand that. But you need the money to get the power.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, well, okay. So how did you become a capo? You know, what I mean, like, did you have to eventually do a lot of work until you had to build yourself up to be that? I mean,
No, what happened? You got to realize I'm in Boston, and I got between my friends, the Irish guys, the guys underneath me. There was a lot of Italians, but there was a lot of Irish guys, different people with me, and probably about 100 of us altogether, 50 to 100, with all their associates. So I established myself up there, planted my flag, and I was a boss. Made or not, I was still a boss. So when I went to Philly, first to New York, and then to Philly, they knew that. They called people up there. They knew people. What's Bobby doing? All this, and they came back and said, "Listen, we want you with us." So they knew I had the setup. They knew the
yeah.
power I had up there.
So what do you think about the, being full Italian to be made? How did that? I mean, because there's
Well,
probably guys around you that put in a lot of work too, but they could never be made.
no, but in my thing, I did it a little differently. If you were an Irish boss or boss in a different gang, you got respected.
Hmm.
You never could be a made guy, but you're respected as a boss, especially around me. That's
Yeah.
how I wanted it. We respected everybody. I don't care if you're Irish, Black, Puerto Rican, Spanish, I don't care what you are. We're working together. We're all men. I had a different outlook. Of course, you can't make them, but they had to be respected from my crew and the people around me. So that's how I did it.
Yeah. So definitely you had respect for everyone.
Yes, I did. You have to. You got to have respect for people.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I know, man. And I'm sure you still apply that too with, everything you do today. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
what is something that you learned off the street that, you still are able to use that today?
Well, when I was younger and getting groomed, you know, in my the late, my teens, 16, 17, whatever, I learned a lot from the old timers. And from that, I brought that into my everyday life, and there's things that they teach you not to speak out of line, off turn, be patient with people, learn about people. That's the main thing. You're on the street, you got to know the people that are around you. You got to be able to deal with everybody in a different manner. A lot of people can't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I used to watch and sit and see how these guys would operate with these people, and I learned. And I took a lot of that into my business life, and it worked for me. A lot of these guys, and I said it, they could have been Fortune 500 guys. A lot of these bosses years ago, but they choose that life. But a lot of smart guys in that life.
And
Different now, everybody's Americanized now. It's, it's a different culture than it was even when I was a kid.
so what do you think the difference is? From back then, why would someone want to join the life instead of going legit and being a Fortune 500 person?
Well, listen, it's like I said this before. You grew up in a neighborhood. Basically, if your parents may be lucky, worked with the mob or bookmakers or loan sharks, or maybe you'd have a little more than the other kids. If they were hooked up, connected. But what could you do in our neighborhoods? You could be a cop, a fireman, construction worker, a mob guy. So, I wanted to be a mob guy when I was younger. Then I learned that I loved the construction. I wanted to be a construction guy. When that failed, what did I do? I went back to the mob.
Yeah.
But that was then. We're talking almost 25 years ago when they were still powerful. There was still power there and still connections. But that's all.
So what is, I guess, you see as a kid that kind of drew you into that life? Do you recall?
Yes, I do. I told you I was young. I was around them. My father was Bobby Luisi. I was respected from all the older guys. These guys are driving beautiful cars, jewelry, $2,000 suits, $1,000 suits. Their shoes were more than the clothes I had on my back. They had all the women. They had everything. They were like movie stars in the neighborhood, some of them, And that's something like you're a young kid. You look up to that. You glamorize it,
Yeah.
It wasn't like today. They're looking up to, I don't even know these people's names. P. Diddy, Wolfman. I don't know who these people are. No, I'm just saying.
I know what you're saying.
But that's what the young people look at today. When I was a kid, we idolized gangsters.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to be like the gangsters.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what is the difference now? Like, with, like you were kind of saying earlier, with joining the life now, what's the difference from back when your era to now, like.
Well, in the 90s, we were up here. It was the Wild West up here. Got away with a lot of things. The feds were on us, but not the way they are today. They got everything under more control. There's even more technology, and there's more informants. I would advise anybody not to go near this life and stay far away from it. Far away from it. And then you have to look. The North End, Revere, East Boston, Medford, all these close communities were all Irish and Italian. There was a lot of Italian in there to dip in and take out. But young kids today, they don't even want that life. They're going to college, they're doing different things. Because if you got a little head on your shoulders, you see it's a dead end. You might have fame or fortune for maybe like I did for 10 years. Then what? 10 years on the street, 13 nights, 14 years in prison. Doesn't balance out, my friend. No.
Yeah. So, it's a lot different from, because now, you guys like such as ex-mob guys are out doing interviews and stuff. So now they can talk about what they went through and kind of say, well, this is what happened at the end, so this isn't something you want to look forward to or try to get in. And that's what I try to do with my show with, doing these kind of interviews, because I don't know, I think it's kind of important to put that out there, definitely with you too. With, getting involved with, God and stuff too. It kind of really changes your mindset and makes you want to do something more positive. You know what I mean?
Exactly. 100%. You're 100% right. Once you find the truth, how can you refute that? How could you walk away from it?
Right.
We grew up believing our life we were right with everything that we did. We're Cosa Nostra. This is the way it's supposed to be. This is our life. So you finally wake up and see, and your eyes are open to what's really going on.
Yeah.
And how deceitful La Cosa Nostra actually is, the people around you. There were guys who, we killed together, and they had no problem ratting. So, this is the problem today. It's a different world.
Yeah. And wasn't there a saying too, like a made guy's never wrong? Did you ever witness something like that?
Oh, even when I was wrong, I was right. Oh, no, that's true. never wrong. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. So it don't matter. Do what I tell you to do. That was our attitude.
And that was the
And that's the way
mindset.
it was, you
Yeah.
know. And no one ever could put hands on a May guy. That was another rule. There were a lot of rules that went with that, you know.
When you became made, like, yeah, kind of talk about that. Like, what was that status, and what kind of changed for you that people, like an associate and stuff, they couldn't do to you?
Well, listen, when you get made, now you're in the family, and now you're part of this Cosa Nostra, which Cosa Nostra is all over the world. You know that. No matter what family you come in, you're still Cosa Nostra, you're still Mafia, you know. And yeah, it was something to get made. It was. It didn't change anything, if that's what you're asking me. It didn't give me any more control. I was just able to control a little more of what I had.
Yeah.
Because if I did bump heads now with another crew, another May guy, I'm a boss now. I don't have to worry about that. And that's what it was. Because, I grew up with these guys, Patriarca guys. You go after a guy, so I'm with this one, I'm with that one. You back up. Even when I was a boy, I just backed up. All right, you're with him. But sometimes you got to get forceful. And I was in the position to do that now. Not that I wouldn't do it before, but now in that world, I'm legitimate, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I always just kind of wondered, like what the difference was on that, but no, you kind of explained that very well.
Thank you.
But I'm trying to think. I mean, I think we covered quite a bit of stuff, so I mean, kind of talk about your new book that you had coming out.
All right. I wrote this book from Capo to Christian. Let me put it up near the camera there. Hold on. And I wrote this book in prison, actually. And I got out in 2013. I wrote a Christian book, too, that I published when I got out. I never published this book because I was waiting, to be honest with you, for the right time to do that. And I figure now with the show, everything's going on and all the questions from the Christian shows. And I figured it's time to put it out. So it's out now. I got it. I didn't put it on Amazon yet. It's on Etsy. I'll send you the link. Etsy. That's to say it right. Etsy. Etsy store and eBay store. I'll send you those two links. They could go up. Right now I'm selling it there because I'm signing and mailing every copy. So if they come up there, they get it on Etsy, they can put a little note, whatever they want me to write on it, and I'll sign it for them and mail it to them. So I'm going to touch every book, sign every book. In probably 2 months, I will put it up on Amazon.
That's
like
dope.
I did my first one. But I want to be involved with it first before I do that.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll be sure to put when you send me the links, I'll put them in the description. I'll put your also your YouTube channel that you do all kinds of different shows, and the Christian channel as well. So I'll put both of those links in there.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to promote before we wrap up?
No, that's it, really. Just a Christian show, the Bobby Luisi Show. You're going to put the links up. I'd love for the people to come over and watch that. It'd be nice.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm going to be on YouTube. I'm not going anywhere. And let me tell you something. I'm getting all great reviews on the book.
Damn. Yeah.
No, I am. People are reading it. You'll see if you watch the show Wednesday night what they're saying.
Okay. Yeah.
It's good.
People are definitely liking it and starting to give out a lot of reviews then.
Yeah. Thank God. Everything's positive. Thank God.
Yeah. That's good, man.
It's nice. But listen, I want to thank you for having me on, my brother. Always good to talk to you and be on your show.
Yeah, you too, Bobby. What'd you guys think? Bobby has a pretty interesting story. I've had him on my show before, so I appreciate you guys watching again. Today we did it in a different kind of angle. We went into more detail about his involvement with both of these families. Not a lot of guys were in two different families, like him. Bobby's going to be on the documentary as well. He's going to be on the Patriarca crime family and the Philly crime family episode of the documentary. So please, if you want to get that, hit subscribe. You'll be the first to get that when it drops. Also, I'll put a playlist at the end of this video so you can go ahead and watch all my other Mafia interviews that I've done in the past. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate it.